Hi guys, welcome to another episode. Today my guest is Karthik. Karthik is CEO and Executive Board Director at RentMoola. I've seen so much media coverage about your organization, Karthik. You guys do great work, and I think this is a solution that so much needed in a market for many different reasons. I'm looking forward to learning about RentMoola and looking forward to a conversation. Thank you so much for your time today, Karthik.
Thank you for having me, Gurmeet. Very excited to be here.
Okay, so if you just walk us our audience, little bit, what is RentMoola is about, and just walk us through what how many areas is covered, and give us some idea.
Yeah, so absolutely. So RentMoola is a place where we build a community between the landlord and the tenant. So it's a two-sided marketplace, and we offer services for the landlord of any size. You could be large REITs, you can have hundreds and thousands of properties. You could be one of the mid-cap, large-cap, 200,000 landlords, or you could be the 22 million mom and pop, small cap, micro cap landlord here in the US. And you can use our platform to build a community and also take care of things like revenue lifecycle management, which is cash flow management, including collecting rent, accounting for rent, all the good stuff. Manage risk on the platform. So you're able to do quite a bit of work around really screening your tenant for you, across your credit checks, criminal checks, bank account, employment verification, and also, if they sign up for debt across board, we can create a view. So a lot of good stuff there to assess the predictability of your tenant coming in. We also offer services like AI-driven rental insurance. We have a tracker alongside it, so that if they already have one, they can just upload it. So we track it for the landlord. If they don't have one, they can access one on the platform. And then apart from that, we do advanced analytics and reporting for the landlord, so they can really understand by property, by location, by rental unit, what is happening, historical, and also predict behaviors and take the right prescriptive actions, so on and so forth. We also do tenant communication. We simplify communications like notifications, maintenance requests, building level information, news, so on and so forth. And last but not the least, we will be introducing two forms of liquidity for the landlord. Both of them are unsecuritized. So we use data on the revenue producing asset, which is the rental unit. And based on that, they may have access to a working capital solution as well as a business loan solution. We are working with one of the largest fintech in the world to put the program together for Q1. And if you're a tenant, we are all about really democratization of financial services and financial literacy. Gurmeet, you know that the renter population is very diverse. 36% of the American population live in rental household. That's over 100 million people. So you find, a lot of millennials, Gen Zs, people under 45 years of age, but there's a lot of senior living as well, students, people who come in and go out. 20% of consumers in the US are underbanked and outside the banking system. So the common thread here is your understanding of the financial markets and the services hugely impacts your standard of living. And we, as a fintech, level that playing field. For example, if you are a tenant on my platform, everything is kind of simplified. We democratize financial services as well as financial literacy. So your journey can start by searching for the right apartment on Zillow, putting together your tenant application, going through tenant screening and get in front of the line, access AI-driven, special discounted rental insurance instantly on the platform. Under 5 minutes, you can procure them. We're also working on releasing security deposit alternatives. Instead of putting up 2-month rent in cash upfront, which is a pain for many American families, we offer them the benefit of using something like a security deposit alternative, which are 10% the cost. You can spread out the cost over a couple of years. And then last but not the least, we offer comprehensive payment methods, 360-degree payments, as we call it, everything from bank, credit card, debit cards, to digital wallets like Apple, WeChat, PayPal, all the way down to eCash. So they can use, the cell phone to get a barcode and walk into retail stores like 7-Eleven, Walmart, Walgreens to pay their rent as part of their shopping experience. And the whole thing reconciles as though it's an online payment. And last but not the least, the ability to process digital, checks at digital speed as well. Check scanning, check capture, physical lockbox. So you see that we cover everybody. And then we recently launched text to pay as well, is a major leveler. So we call it anytime, anywhere, any device rent payment. And it's a very simple, seamless, easy way to pay your rent. And then apart from that, we offer services like Rent Now, Pay Later, where they can access installment pay as well as revolving line of credit at 0% interest. So they can use that for a variety of purposes, splitting their rent payments, and as well as for the one-time bigs like catching up for your COVID rent that you have to pay, as well as for things like security deposit, all kind of usages. We are just providing this service for the tenants so they can stay on top of their finances. The most important thing, Gurmeet, is every rent payment can turn into a credit building event. So we can report your on-time credit payments to the credit bureaus, so you can improve your credit score, and that allows you to, build on your aspirations of maybe renting a bigger home or maybe becoming a first-time homeowner. So we can help you in that journey as well.
Okay, that is a lot of areas to cover, Karthik. I'm just trying to. So let me understand. All the services you mentioned, are they only applied to US? Are they also available in Canada as well? How's the split goes? Most of the services you mentioned, because could be different market, based on a province or states. Are most of them also available in Canada as well?
Yeah, majority of our customers are in Canada today. Actually, 80% of our customers are in Canada, and US happens to be our fastest growing market, including our largest customer. So we are a Canadian company headquartered in Vancouver. And we are opening, a U.S. headquarters in San Diego soon. But we are a Canadian company, and we have several major Canadian landlords who are customers with us, actually. So we work with both the Canadian as well as the U.S. landlords. So today we are readily available in over 400 cities across North America and UK and Ireland. But most of our partners are very large partners like Amazon and PayPal and PaySafe. So it's seamless for us when we move into these markets because we have the infrastructure to make that happen as well.
Okay. How about covering residential area, also commercial properties as well? Is it covering both or just residential properties we're talking about right now?
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, we are a payment platform with access to liquidity. So we call ourselves B2B2C. So we can go any ways. You can have businesses, you can have consumers. So we today do a variety of properties. We do obviously residential multifamilies. We also do single family, duplex, and smaller multifamilies. We call mom and pop landlord properties. We do commercial properties. We do mobile homes where you pay mortgage as well as your rent. And one other category, which is racing both in Canada and US, is rent to own as well. So wherever you can actually set a charge, and then you have to collect money and account for it, we are relevant. So we are very flexible. Yes.
So in the core, let's talk from the landlord side of things, and then we'll talk about tenants. What is a key problem we're trying to solve in a landlord? Is it collecting money on time? Is that the biggest problem they're trying to solve? Because I know they have a lot of other systems right now while they run it. They have a Yardi or a bunch of other systems. So what is the key problem that landlords, what are your thoughts are you guys solve for them that they need to be, taking on your platform?
Yeah, so the first thing I tell people is rent is collected through the month and rent is collected every month. So it is a huge, massive undertaking as a landlord. And now, depending on where you are, if you're a large REIT and a large, you have operations, you have a front office, you're part of the mid-cap, large-cap landlords, you do have operations as well, and you're semi-automated to full automated, you have a whole range. If you're a mom and pop, it's a very different scenario. So the value prop, I would say, for different groups is very different. In general, what we do is really empowerment of the landlord. We take away the repetitive, mundane stuff like payment, reconciliation, setting charges, making sure that all the methods are available and rent is collected and accounted in time. Through difficult times like COVID, where you could not staff your front office, all the operational part is absolutely very important. But the second part is we also ensure that the landlords are able to collect rent in full on the beginning of the month because of our Rent Now, Pay Later solution, particularly in the US. We also offer easy onboarding with our text to pay. So instead of having to have your tenants log into portals, they just simply get a text message and they can respond to the text message and their entire rent payment is done and the books are kind of really reconciled. So the value prop varies from simplification of your day-to-day and empowering them to seamlessly execute, to all the way to providing a single platform that can take care of a lot of their needs. For example, if you are part of that 22 million mom and pop, where you have single family duplex and smaller multi-families, what we've learned both through surveys and through anecdote is that these landlords take on average a 20-25% discount on their rent because they don't have a single platform that can do all the process from listing to tenant application to insurance to security deposit to collecting rent every month to tenant communication. So the value prop is hugely amplified as you start to go down. The other thing I'd like to tell you is there is this really split in today's economy where people focus on hashtag cancel rent, tenant evictions are a problem. Absolutely, tenant evictions are a problem. 68% increase in eviction filings. And it is not just COVID that has amplified it. This has been an underlying problem for the tenants. For example, 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So $400 unexpected spend can throw a lot of these families into turmoil. Now, COVID made it worse, no question about that. But even before COVID, increasingly people are spending 50-60% of their pre-tax income on rent. So it's not very difficult to do the math. You need 2 paychecks in a month
to manage
to
it.
pay the month on the first. Now, here's the other side of the coin. If you're a mom and pop or a mid-cap landlord, you rely on your rent for your expenses. 90% of rent goes towards mortgage and operating expenses. So there is a real cost to you not being able to collect your money on the first of the month. So the not too often spoken about issue here is that there has also been a 250% rise in critical mortgage default. So if the government decides to release the foreclosure moratorium, over 2 million homes will go into foreclosure today. So what we try to do is help reduce that friction. You got the landlord, you have to ensure that they collect money on the first, and you have to help the tenants balance their paychecks better. Now the answer can't be go and buy an insurance product that puts a premium and tax on you every month, or go and borrow from a payroll discount product where you can access the money ahead, but they take a discount of your payroll, or even worse, go and get predatory loan. So we need to give them flexibility. And on the landlord side, it's all about let's collect and account it. Now, there is a solution for this in the B2B market. It's called trade financing. Right? If you're a supplier, you want to extend your payments, and you are a customer who wants to get paid early. You're a supplier, you want to get paid early, and the customer, you want to extend your payment. So a whole ecosystem of partners come in and make things happen. Now,
you lose percentage of it, right? You lose percentage of your rent somehow, right?
Yeah, so that is in the B2B world, right? So what we are doing is the e-commerce also has a solution. It's called buy now, pay later, right? So buy now, pay later, you bring flexibility, and you create a flexibility for the tenant and the consumer to consume products. If you look at the stories like Afterpay, Affirm, Klarna, that's all they do, right? It's about balancing your paycheck and making things happen. So our rent now, pay later solution provides the same flexibility, allows you at 0% interest to balance your paychecks better, allows you to kill your credit card fees, and allows you to pay your landlord on the first. The way it works is we do have that at checkout, the rent now, pay later. The whole process takes under 90 seconds. You click apply, you get approved. Money is transferred in full directly to the landlord. So the landlord gets paid right away. And then the tenant gets the flexibility to pay back within the month for the installment pay. And they get much longer term when it comes to the other pay. And the way this happens is it allows the tenant to kind of balance the whole paycheck thing. And we have a win-win here. So the landlord is getting paid so they can stay on top of their mortgage payments and so on. And the tenant is obviously able to balance their paycheck without taking a tax on the whole thing. So what we do is not just reduce the friction, because you made one of the most stressful part of the relationship go smoother. And we offer simple automation for things like AI-driven insurance, security deposit alternative. It's all about empowerment. And once the empowerment comes into play, the landlord and the tenant can focus on building the community. So the other thing that we offer, Gurmeet, is also integrate to the landlord system of record, be it Gaudi, MRI, RESTman, whatever, we integrate. So there is still only one system of truth, and we can draw data from the system, engage with the tenant as a classic system of engagement, and then reconcile it back to the system of record. So that's where I think the benefits are amplified for all parties.
This is a huge win for both parties. Like from landlord side of things, cash flow is critical for every business. And if I'm a landlord, I invested in the properties, and if you, as you mentioned, if 95% of my cash flow goes into paying mortgages, and you give me cash flow first of every month, and it's predictable, that helps them to manage the cash flow for the whole month. That solves the landlord problem. Also on a tenant side, if I'm short on a few days and you give me that extension, that it solves a both side problem. That definitely kills a friction. But on tenant side, let's talk about that. All that. If they need to split the payments, or if they need to delay the payments, do they need to get their financial institute involved, their banks involved in that, or you guys take care of the financial side as well?
Yeah, so we actually use a combination of data-driven lending, and we partnered with some of the largest financial institutions in the world. So one of the common thread for lending in US for sure is your credit score. I've got a lot of issues with your credit score. For starters, 1 in 5 is feared to have some form of mistake in it. If you're an immigrant, you have a problem until you build up your credit score. It's like you never existed. And I had the problem when I moved here from Europe myself. And then if you had 1 or 2 bad incidents in your life, the repair takes time as well. Here's the hard truth, right? 80% of Americans pay back borrowed money on time. Only 48% have access to prime credit. Okay? So the problem there is, prime credit itself is 40%, up to 40% interest. Subprime could be 100% interest. So the system is set up in a way that it is not very inclusive. Right? So the future of consumer finance is alternate underwriting using data, behavioral stuff. So there are a lot of data points that you can access and use. For example, their transaction history on rent payment. Rent happens to be one of the most on-time payments. If you look back 2 years, 4 years in, and see have they been on time, how many times were they late. So that gives you a lot of data. The other thing is we do have a tracker that can look into pieces like how many other installment pay have they signed up for in multiple websites, because we do the bank account analysis, so we can come up with the data. And then history on fintech platforms as well. If you are using a Venmo or a PayPal, or you're on Intuit, so a lot of financial history that goes on over the last 2 to 3 years, where you just paid your landscaper, gardener. There's a lot of data that can be used to underwrite consumers more smartly and remove the problem we have today, where 80% payback on time, yet only 48% of access, and the remainder of people are deprived, and that forces them to take drastic steps to recover. So it's a smarter way of underwriting. It's a smarter way of looking at the consumer and making sure they have the flexibility. And that, I firmly believe that is going to be the future. A lot of great financial institutions that are going down that path and looking at data as a better way of defining it. But I think I would still reckon this is a up and coming field, and early movers will have huge advantage. But you're going to see that the entire institutional underwriting capabilities will change in the coming years and decades.
Was there any other solution around before you guys took on this initiative, Karthik, or is this something unique in the market that you guys simply introduced? How was people were managing before? Just a small, piecemeal solutions trying to get around things, or was there something else available in the market?
Yeah, sorry about my puppy. It's been very loud.
That's okay.
So it depends on how you define the problem. Okay. Well, if the problem is how do you ensure that your landlords get paid on time, then people have done different things to stay on top of it. Now, COVID is an aberration. Even through COVID and before and after COVID, if you look at it, what happened, 63% of renters took dramatic steps to ensure they could keep their roof on top of their head. They borrowed money, they dipped into their savings, or they sold off assets just to keep roof on top of their head. Now, you could say there is no problem. I got paid on the first. but at what cost? Because let's also not forget that your credit score today does not comprehensively take into account all your debts as well. So the situation may be far worse than what it is. So this is a huge problem impacting a lot of people. For example, through COVID, 9.4 million households fell behind on rent payment by an average of $5,660 approximately. That's a 50 billion plus hole. That has to be collected because that money is also owed from the landlord to their mortgage companies, to the operational expenses. All right. So now there are alternatives to it. For example, you can come and say, let's drive an insurance product. Okay, great. You come up with the insurance product and you say the insurance company will pay the landlord on the first, and then they'll collect from the tenant through the month. Now, here's the problem with that approach. Number one, there is no new liquidity here. You're still trying to go in and try to charge back from the tenants, right? So the second problem is the tenant to subscribe to this are charged a premium every month. Could be as high as 30, 40 bucks a month, okay? Depending on your credit thing. And you're charged that every month, regardless. If you take into consideration your classic late fees around $20 to $25, it's expensive than your late fee every month. That's how bad it is. That's the first problem. They penalize the tenant every month. The second problem is that the underwriting is usually done by the insurance companies in many cases. So they underwrite based on what criteria do you think? Credit score. So if you don't have the credit score, you're not getting access. So that's a problem you're solving. For example, we don't have a monthly premium or tax on the consumer. This is just in time. If you decide to use it, there is a processing fee at 0%, if you pay back within the time. So that's how it is. And we use our fintech partners to make that credit available. So we cancel that tax. Number two, we don't use credit score. We use alternate underwriting methods. So it's far more inclusive. What happens with credit score is that the only people who will qualify for the program are the people who need no help. They can access the same liquidity outside the platform. Ours is more data-driven, more inclusive, the second part. And the third thing is that we match the benefits. In both cases, the landlords receive the money on the first. So that's what we are doing. Now, the other alternative would be payroll, paycheck discount products, where you can access the money like a few weeks ahead of your payroll coming in. In exchange, you give a discount on your payroll. You don't have to do that. So this one is essentially 0% interest. If you're going for the revolving line of credit, if you qualify, it's for 6 months. This one is it's like a pay in 4 option for 3 weeks. So either way, it allows you to just balance your paycheck. And that's all it is for. It is to provide flexibility. It is to replace your credit card fees and other payment. And it's also avoid you having to sign up for products like the fixed insurance where you lose control. With some other things. The other product that we've seen is some that says, okay, we are going to create a rental bank account, and then we are going to really sweep money from the tenant's income account into this bank account, and then we will pay the landlord on the first. Now that's great. What it really tells you is that the tenants are very poor in managing their finances. So we're going to do it for them. There is no real value in terms of new liquidity coming in. It's the same paycheck, except they take the control out of the tenant and they say, if you sign up for this, I'm going to automatically sweep. You have absolutely no control over your budgeting. Now, that might sound on the paper a great solution, makes the landlord feel like, oh, that's good. But technically, you have to find a way to empower the tenant. The reality doesn't change. I mean, how do you account for the fact that maybe they lost their job for 2 months and they come back in? So there is no paycheck coming. How do you sweep now? So that's why we need to think about this. I would also say that, Gurmeet, it's not one size fits all. And we're not replacing all the problems in the world. All we're trying to do is focusing on those 80% of people who have both the intent and the ability to pay back on time. And then figure out why they've been excluded from the system and find a way to bring them back in. Because I think it is outrageous that the consumer can buy a luxury item on an e-commerce site with buy now, pay later, but they can't use a similar kind of liquidity solution for their largest spend every month. It's the same consumer.
Yeah.
So that's all. I think we're just trying to get some common sense into this discussion a little bit. And this may not be the only solution. There may be other people with more innovative ideas. But nevertheless, we are here to help that genuine consumer balance their paycheck better.
Yeah, I never seen such a help for tenants, especially what we've gone through COVID. I know a lot of people suffer, tenant also on landlord side as well. A lot of office buildings, people suffer, what they're going to do with their lease extension. So a lot of that has gone through. I haven't seen that. How does government programs play a role in this, Karthik? Did you see it during the COVID? Did the government, they had programs where they could, help either landlords or tenants for the rents during this COVID? Did you see any interaction with those, or did that play any role?
Yeah, like I said, you need a whole village to come and help the families here. That's what's happening. So you have states like California coming up with rental relief programs. I think that the general problem is who tends to benefit, and it is not a political statement. I'm just saying it's a complex problem. Rent is one of the most regulated markets there is.
Sure.
Data privacy, data security, PCI, compliance, anti-money laundering checks. We have spent over 30 million just on payments for this platform and years of R&D. We process over 2 billion in rent, over 2 million transactions. We collect a lot of data. So it's not one of those things where you can just mail a check and the problem is solved, right? You need to figure out who are the genuine landlords who need help. Now, is that just large, mid-cap, large-cap landlords and REITs? Or are we going to worry about the mom and pops? Here's the problem, right? What happens if you are a mom and pop landlord, and just like most of average Americans do, put your money into buying a property instead of putting it in the stock market? And you have it rented out, you can't evict your tenant, and we absolutely understand the plight of the tenant. It is a very sad situation. It's tragic all around. I want to say that. But you can't evict the tenant. What happens now is you have a property where you can't collect rent, can't evict a tenant. What happens next is you are in the line to lose your primary home. It is tragic. Now, the question is arguable. How does a government program like that, how can they reach these landlords and the tenants? So one of the program requires you to look at last 12 months collected due rent, and landlord agrees to forgive 20% of it, and then the government pays you 80% of it. Great intent, fantastic program. But my question is, you need platforms like us, the fintechs, to create that transaction. Now, does it also come with forgiveness on the mortgage side, or is it still in there, or it gets added up? So these are not black and white issues. So when people get into activism, I'll tell them it's very tragic all around. You've got to feel for the landlords, particularly mom and pops. You have to feel for the tenant. It's a time for compassion. It's not a time to jump to conclusions and make conclusive statements. So, like I said, it takes a village to put this together. So this is where I believe fintechs play a pivotal role. Because as a technology, we can create inclusiveness, accessibility, flexibility, and we can do that compassionately. And that's why platforms like ours have grown. We have grown 23x in the last 7 months in units access compared to last year. We are seeing big growth in the number of landlords onboarding, number of tenants onboarding, but it is a ocean. And we need partners, like-minded partners across both to alleviate this pain.
So what's been some of the biggest challenge, Karthik, in your initiative? Is it education, is awareness, or just going into a new market? What's been your biggest challenge?
Changing mindsets.
Okay.
Rental industry has been around for a very long time, and that people have been collecting rent, and digital payments was a nice to have. It's now become an absolute necessity, right? Many of my landlords are never going back to staffing their front office, and you cannot just collect checks, process them without transmitting pathogens or being worried about it at the lease. There are data concerns, there are security concerns, there are personnel concerns. There's been a lot of challenges. I think the community has worked through this pretty diligently through COVID. The acceptance of digital payments is one major step. And I think the next logical step is changing mindset, because the old mindset is, oh, my tenant can't afford 1 month's rent, without really questioning their intent. Do they really are trying hard to pay the rent, and they're not capable? Are they really, not trying to pay rent? Because, people always take advantage of different systems. And the answer is, I don't care either way. If they can't pay the rent, it's a revolving door. I'm going to bring in new tenants. Well, that worked, right? At the time when you had long waiting lists and so on. Now things have gotten extremely complicated through COVID. And now people are realizing that you need to build a brand, you need to build a community, particularly with the changing demographics when it comes to tenant. It's about creating flexibility, creating convenience. And that's why solutions like Rent Now, Pay Later are valuable, because you don't have to compromise on what's important for you, cash flow. And then you move forward and then start to focus on building a community. So the biggest challenge is changing those mindsets where collecting rent used to be easy. You had a certain amount of turnover and you're bringing people over. We don't know what is the future of on-premise offices anymore. Will people get back to the large cities? So there's been a lot of changes. I think the key for someone like in the real estate industry as a market leader or someone with a huge number of properties is to start adopting technology and trying to create a community, be it virtual or in flesh and blood. So that is going to be the biggest challenge, to continuously adopt and adapt best practices and change the way you look at your tenants. And that is going to be, I believe, the biggest change.
Yeah, that is tough part. That's big challenge. Fun is change in any industry that no matter small or big changes, all these challenges, right? So not only we asking them to change the way they run a business, because they don't need that many administrative staff. A lot of stuff is automated with their system. And the second part is definitely embracing technology. A lot of this business, they may not be comfortable with the technology, the way they've been doing with the older way. They have a process running, they have a business, a process or technology process built in. They've been so comfortable with that. So they got to train people. So that's a big part. So I see that changing mind is a big challenge on the landlord side. How about tenant side? Because they have to use the system as well. So is it one of the other problems are bigger, as long as you get the landlord on your side, that it solves the second problem, or is still the same problem other side as well?
Yeah, I'm a CEO. I'm an optimist, right? And when I look at any problem, it is my problem to solve. That's the way we look at it. Our problem, not just my problem. It's my team. We have a great team. We work through it. So I look at it and go, like, it's easy to sit there and be, in a way, in a slightly condescending tone, say you got to change, but you got to make change possible, right? And you got to give it in a way that they understand. Now, what is one of the biggest change in the last decade? Advent of smartphones. 97% of North American population have access to a smartphone. And we also know interacting on a smartphone is much more effective than papers or portals or whatever. So that's why the text to pay, we're calling it, like I mentioned, anytime, anywhere, any device, communication and rental payments is a key step forward. For example, if you are a tenant and you are just coming into a property, what would your typical property manager do? They will give you a sheet of paper and they say, here is the portal, log into it, create a user password, start putting in your payment details right here. Oh, don't forget to click the button that says recurring payments. That's it. You're now set up. Well, how many people do you think actually go through with that process? So instead, we actually are bringing hospitality style concierge service to your rental communities. So with our text to pay. So we tell them, don't bother with all of that. Just as part of the registration process, ask for their phone number, tell them they'll receive a welcome message. And they immediately receive a welcome message that says, welcome to the property and congratulations on your new unit, personalized from a secure number, which is allocated to the landlord. They get the message. And as part of it, they can click and set up their payment method. That's it, right? And then we can do free notifications. We tell the landlord, you don't have to worry about printing invoices, rental invoices, dropping it under the door. We'll send them in 200 languages a personalized message on the day of payment. And the message would read like, oh, dear Mrs. Scott, residing at Garden Avenue, apartment 1917, your monthly rent of $1,800 is due today. If you wish to use your last used payment method, credit card ending in 0698, text yes. So she can just text yes, and the whole payment is done, and she can print a receipt on her phone under 3 seconds. Okay. And we also tell them if they don't want that method of payment, they want to change another, they can click a link below and change the method of payment. So every method of payment accessible on the portal is accessible via the phone. So this is a great way of moving the community forward. So instead of telling them you have to change your thinking, we just tell them, how about I take away the biggest operational pain? If 30% of your apartments are, have new tenants every year, how about I make that onboarding just like in hotel concierge service? That I think is the answer. Simplification of the workflow and making it inclusive. 86% of consumers respond back to a known secure message from a cell phone within 20 minutes of receiving it. So these are the things that we can use to really broaden our reach and get more generally acceptable.
Very interesting. So I take it the program for you to implement on any property, the landlord has to be the first one to agree to enroll in it, and then you extend that to tenant. Is that how it works, Karthik?
So we are launching a two-sided marketplace in collaboration with some network commerce partners of ours. So we will now be able to I think it's in the launch is planned before end of this year. So we'll be able to actually have tenants sign up, pay their rent, and all they need is one or three pieces of information, either the email address of the landlord, or the PayPal or Venmo account of the landlord, or the physical address of the landlord. So we can either send them an email to click and accept payment, or we could directly deposit the money on their wallet, or we could cut them a physical check. So it's a two-sided marketplace as it comes, and we don't have to necessarily require the landlord to sign up. The reason why we're doing that, Gurmeet, is if you have to reach 22 million mom and pop and give them access to this wide variety of solutions we have, we want to have a two-sided approach where we all talk to these landlords, but we also, when your tenant tells you this is a great way, because I just had access to the rent no pay later, so I could balance my paycheck and I could pay you on time. By the way, I also procured my rental insurance and security deposit alternative on the platform. Plus, every time I pay my rent, I get credit because I signed up for credit reporting. And then the landlord thinks, okay, why not extend it to my 20 other properties? Because it looks like this is a great way to do it. So they can just set up their wallet, and in the future, it's directly deposited in their wallet. So we are a very unique public cloud in the sense that we can service all of these different categories of landlords. And you can have a landlord sign up today, or when we launch this network, and watch the space because we'll come up with some big announcements. It's a massive partnership with some of the leading fintech players in the industry. And when we have that, we can actually have the tenants sign up as well. So we're very close to making some big announcements, and that way we can level the playing field, both sides.
Any plan with interacting with the property management side of things as well, Karthik? I know you solve just if I'm a landlord, you just solve my administration. You just drop my administration cost to very, very minimum, because I don't need to chase people for rent. I don't need to manage. You just reduce my administration cost. How about property management side? Do you guys interact with or integrate with any of those solutions there?
Yeah, the property managers represent most of the properties on our platform. So we don't differentiate if you're a property management company in charge of managing multiple, or if you're an individual landlord or a large institutional landlord. We don't care. The service is still the same. You did bring up an important point though, Gurmeet. So what we have done is we've taken our payment platform and converted that into a smart wallet. So we can deploy that as an outbound wallet into any website or ERP or utilities through APIs. So 10% of our revenues today comes by processing utility payments. So we have Conservice, Wise, and we offer our payment options for their consumers as a wallet on their platform. So that's a major part of what we do, like associations, Apartment Owners Association of California, major ERP players. We got the APIs, utility companies. So anybody who wants support with B2B to C, they can use our platform as embedded wallet and still reap all the benefits that I just described to you.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. So a couple of things you can mention, that announcement we just talked about. Anything else that coming in and down, for down there in a roadmap for you guys? What else? Where else are you guys going to? Just extending the same thing, and just trying to add some more features to it, or are you guys taking a different direction? So where are you guys going with as an investment?
Yeah, our vision is really seamlessly merging financial services, with the real estate and multifamily markets and real estate markets across both. So we are called what is called a crossover from fintech to proptech, and we are the first and only company to bring the benefits of buy now, pay later into the world of rent utilities, and we also will be moving to healthcare soon. We'll make some announcements there. So our mission is fairly straightforward. It is empowerment of consumers through a simple, secure, and fully integrated system, right? And empowerment comes when you're doing two things: when you're making operations easy, but we're also allowing them to tap into new opportunities. That's true empowerment. And our mission is to do that. Now, it can mean different things for the tenant, it can mean different things for the landlord, but that's the innovation cycle. We're continuously figuring out how do we make sure some of these services that can have a huge impact on your quality of life are limited in access because of that financial literacy component. How can I simplify it? And how can I include it in a convenient, flexible fashion on my platform so people can take advantage of it? So that's a mission that will never end. And like I said, there is an yesterday, today, and tomorrow. You're always reconciling your past with your anticipation of the future to drive your present. And this is our mantra. We do it day in, day out.
Very interesting. So let's talk about yourself, Karthik. I saw your portfolio. You've been in an EMC. I saw that transition from there, and a worldwide sales. You've been around in this, leadership role for a long time. So how did you get involved in RentMoola?
Yeah, it's been a long story for me. I've been in the industry for over 2 decades and worked for really big brands like SAP, Dell EMC, where I was managing large businesses across the globe, in Europe, across the globe, in the Americas, and so on. I've always been obsessed with solving problems, right? What happens when you are new to an industry is you look at problems that are very obvious to your eyes, but then people have gotten so much used to the problems that they've forgotten the pain and they go about doing things the same way. So I'm always obsessed with finding that problem and solving for it, right? So if you just look at my journey from SAP to Dell EMC to the different startups I've been involved with, it always comes down to how do you empower consumers and businesses, right? So one of the largest things for corporates and Fortune companies is access to liquidity. When you have access to liquidity, it changes the game for you. You can survive cycles and come back up. And when I was working for mid-market businesses, I was obsessed with creating that liquidity. How do you create a recession-proof organization? And I was exploring that quite a bit. And now on the B2B2C side, it's very similar. I'm looking at how do I create options and flexibility for this community of consumers, right? So long as there is a problem to solve, you will have different innovators and leaders try to come up with different ways of solving the problem, and that's what drives me as a individual and a professional. And the reason why I took over the role with Lettuce and RentMoola is that I define the problem differently. When I looked at the market, you look at $500 billion collected in rent every year in the US in 2019. And then the problem for me was not quite, how do I just transfer money from the tenant to the landlord? The problem was the fact that 78% of consumers were living paycheck to paycheck. And they were $400 away from making tough choices, choosing between healthcare, groceries, and even paying rent, keeping a roof. It's difficult. So for me, the whole idea of how do I create flexibility, how do I bring some of the best practices from the Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 world to the mid-market businesses and bring it further down to the consumer. That's the mission that drives me. And with RentMoola, I saw that that's the problem that has to be fixed, creating that flexibility and really creating that convenience and options that are available in e-commerce and extend it to your largest spend every month. So that's how I got into the business, with the mission to kind of combine financial services with the rental market.
Mm-hmm. What's been more rewarding for you, Karthik? I know understanding the deep end of the problem or the finding a solution for it. Which one seems to be more rewarding?
Well, it's very easy to get too much caught up with the problem. I'm more driven by the purpose. Mm-hmm. Why are we doing it? Well, the purpose is that liquidity and access could stop those 63% of the renter families today who are taking dramatic steps to stay afloat, selling assets, borrowing from their savings, and generally, also borrowing at cost. So I measure success by impact, right? Yeah. The sooner we can move some of these fringe families with the good intent, good ability to pay back, but just they're not included in the way the financial systems are set up today. So our mission should be measured by nothing other than compassionate support for these families. And if you can even help a handful of families not go through the painful eviction process and people are scattered. It's the one thing you can't get back from. Losing a job, you can get back. Losing a roof over your head and getting into homelessness is a very difficult curse to rebound from. Imagine you have young kids. People are already stressed and strained, right? So for me, it's not the problem, it's not the solution. It's anything we can do today to take the numbers and politics and statements out of the situation and focus on really helping some of these families stand back on their feet. That's impact. Even one family is good enough. But that is why what we have done is gone out there and said, we are too small to solve these problems. Where are my like-minded partners? And this is what makes me smile every day. There are some of the largest, multi-$100 billion, trillion-dollar valuation companies. I've been in those boardrooms, met their executives. They are focused on similar problems. The question is, how do you channel that? How do you tell them that this $500 billion market has got absolutely no financial support? Yeah. So how can we bring, compassion into this process? How do we help people? There's 20% of consumers outside the banking system and underbanked. How do you help them? How do you use technology as a bridge to build that true community? And I'm happy to tell you, a lot of people who want to do the right thing. The tough part is putting the plan together and making impact. So the day I stop measuring impact that way is the day I'm not fit to do my job, because it's not about problems, not about solving. It's about creating ground level impact. And it's not just me. There's a whole community of leaders and very motivated employees. Like in my company, they're all mission driven, and it takes a village to lift a family. It really does.
Yeah, talk about impact. One of the things you mentioned our discussion last week, that you mentioned diversity was very important to your organization. If you talk about a little bit, how do you guys approach it? Is it intentionally set up that way? Or how do you guys approach diversity at your organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have values, but I'm also an entrepreneur, right? Everything I do, I look for where is the industry inefficient, right? One of the places where it's inefficient is that they promote and hire people who've already done the job before, right? I turn around and ask myself that question. I'm a first-time CEO, right? If I was only hired to do the jobs I've done before, I wouldn't be here sitting here talking to you. So I mark that. That's a major inefficiency. And we have a policy, we call it Moneyball candidates, all right? So the difference between a high performance employee and someone with potential is the opportunity to evolve, right? So what am I doing when I'm finding someone who's already done it before? I'm paying the price for someone that's proven in the market and for the efforts and results that they produce for other companies. That's what I'm putting the bill for. What if I kept my open mind and said, I'm going to go and find Moneyball candidates, people with passion, with dedication, and we are huge on core values. If they have the core values and the only thing stopping them is lack of opportunity, let's give them that opportunity and let them earn the same paycheck but they do that by adding value to my company rather than somewhere else in the market. So we go out and we do that. And what happens is that there is a huge issue in every industry around diversity, right? So we don't have a deliberate policy and a quota system. We just said, let's hire people for value. And we got 6 major value to look at. Number 1, are they compassionate? Do they understand the customer inside out? Do they know who the customer is at their highest aspiration, at their deepest despair? Are they able to come up with innovative ideas? Are they able to listen and adapt? That's a great quality. Great, we like that. Are they able to build trust all directions? Can they be part of a championship team? Will they take feedback? Are they willing to take the uncomfortable step and journey to become a better individual, better professional? Are they open to give us feedback so we could make it a better environment for them? So that's the part of it. It's not just about embracing, it's about having a fair environment where the feedback is open and direct, but it comes from a place of compassion and care, right? Then comes, do they have the ability to have very big and good ideas, but have the courage to take a risk and implement it themselves? Then comes accountability. I'm huge on accountability, right? They're able to stand up and say, there are many people who could have helped me, but the mission failed, and I take accountability. But don't worry, here's what I learned from this failure, and I'm going to make it right the next time. So as a leader, someone pushing the envelope, what I like to see is people taking risk. And that's very important. You can't go to the next level of progress without taking risk. If you take risk, you're bound to fail. But here's the rule. If you fail first, fail cheap, right? Never repeat the same mistakes. And also fail fast so that you can learn and move forward quickly. And last but not the least, know how to conserve your resources, be frugal, manage things. Now, if I find those 6 qualities, we hire and we say 2 things are required to build a champion team member, right? Intent and skill. You don't have the skill, shame on me. I want to help you get the skill. You don't have intent, shame on you. Right? So you bring the intent, I give you the skill, and we go forward. But that's the policy we have followed. And people say, are you going to find culture fit? No, culture is what I get when people live the values. I told you what the values are. So I'm not going to tell you this is the culture because it's for you to define it. You're smart enough to do it. So I'm going to hire you for your value and you give me my culture, right? So that's how we've gone in. And by doing that, 50% of our staff are women. Half my leadership team are female. 5 out of 7 executives in my company are visible minorities. And we have a female board member as well. So not by design, not because of quota. I just said, let's find the Moneyball candidates, wherever they are. And that's where we landed.
Yeah, very interesting. I'm totally with you on that. But does this process, hiring on our values, because you're hiring for potential, not for the skill that they already demonstrated somewhere. How about your recruiting process? Does that create a challenge on your recruiting process that you have to test all those values that they bring to the table before you can hire them? Does it slow down your process? Does it cause any challenges on your recruiting process?
Yeah, it's nothing like nothing slows you down when you hire the wrong employee. The expectations are not met, and they leave your company in under a year. That is by far the biggest tax on any business. So now we do it right. We go directly to the channel. We use LinkedIn, other methods. We tell what our mission is. One of the leading method of recruitment for us is referrals. Our employees and people who we've worked with in the past, we've seen talent, and we try to bring them in. And there have been several people who were recruited in the company when I didn't have a role for them. The role was created after I hired them. And that's something you have to do. You have to keep your eye out for talent. You have to always look at the bench, and bring people in. And if you want to be an innovative, fast fintech, you really have to, take some bold steps. Now, has it worked out every single time? No, not actually. I've had my sets of failures, but the philosophy also extends to me. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take some chances. I'm going to take some things, and sometimes it doesn't work out. And then you have a conversation with the employee, try and figure out, is that intent or skill? And life is more complex than the work you do. Sometimes life happens. So we ask them, what about your mental health, mental state? Now, if they say, I'm not in a place where I think I can give my very best, or I think that there is another opportunity that suits me at this stage of my career better, you got to put the employee's health first. And there you can't be selfish, because you'll be hurting yourself by saying, no, I don't want to listen to anything. You got to go through with it. So it takes a lot of listening. It takes me being involved in all the final interviews so people understand what they're signing up for. And we try to actually give them a view of what is good, what is bad, and things that we are looking for them to improve, and things that they have to, work through with persistence, right? So, it's a journey, Gurmeet, and we have succeeded more often than we have failed so far. And that's a balance sheet, I can take.
Very interesting. Well, it takes huge undertaking on a personal growth on a leadership level, right? You got to constantly learn as well, before you bring the value. Any other message, Karthik, you can leave it for that, the business leaders or landlords or property management who are listening to this, our podcast, any message you want to leave for them before we depart?
Yeah, what I would say is prepare your business for tomorrow as much as you prepare it for today. Understand that the whole world has made things very simple. Ordering a car, to even buying a home, to booking your flight, everything is so it is all about really creating that community, and the community means compassionately listening and building the trust really with your tenants, and the tenants with their landlords, and then understand that nothing is black and white. There's several shades of gray. So technology could be a great ally for you. It's a great way to kind of transform and transition, and small steps can go a long way. And always question, is the system ready for tomorrow? And it's not, COVID, some of the changes are temporary, no question about that. Many of the changes are permanent. Are you kind of listening to what the market is saying, the demographic is saying? And we have to figure out, there's a lot of topics on the table: affordable housing, rent to own. There is a huge fortune to be made for any entrepreneur who's got the right mind and the right heart to listen to the problems. It's not about flashy technology. It's about people and their struggles, and how you can help them improve their quality of life. How can you make them inclusive? And how can you give them access to things that have been shut off from them? So there's huge fortune to be made here. But I believe that listening is key. Change, however uncomfortable it is, could also be positive. And guess what? It can also cure some of your chronic problems that we've been putting a Band-Aid for a long time. So it's a chance to reset, I would say, post-COVID, and try to figure out, where is your focus on? Is that heavily focused on running your day-to-day? Or is it focused on high productive jobs, high value jobs, like building your brand, building a community that sets you up for success, not just this year, next year, or for the next decade or so? And a key part of that is using technology and making all the services accessible, and taking advantage of what is available to you. And that's a big part of how we get there.
Interesting. Where can people access RentMoola? Where can they find you if they want to connect with you, Karthik? How can they be in touch with you?
Yeah, they can access us at www.rentmoola.com, spelled rent, RENTMOOLA. Our latest platform is called Lettuce by RentMoola. So Lettuce is the new platform that has all the core strengths of RentMoola, plus the financial services on top of it. So we will be rebranding to Lettuce by RentMoola. The new website would be www.let.us. So just let us help you. Let us. That's the whole idea. And you can always drop me your comments or questions to ceo@rentmoola.com. And I'm very regular on my email, so I'll respond to you right away.
Very interesting. Well, I learned so much about RentMoola, about you, and it was very interesting. I enjoy our discussion. Thank you so much for your time, Karthik.
Thanks for having me, Gurmeet. Good luck to all your listeners. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Karthik. Have a good one.
Bye.